how our political parties have not worked for us. Our leaders have taken us advantage of us. You know, systems have not been working. And the challenge that I give as we push this idea of sustaining the revolution through an organized movement is that the fact that people have failed us in the past must be a call for us to be able to do right that which we feel they did wrong. Otherwise, we are going to we risk going down the same path. And I think that is why we've been very careful, very cautious, even about the matter of leadership, because the question has been, if we appoint a leader, he will be bought, because the leaders have been bought in the past. If we appoint, identify with a leader, they may be compromised or they may be killed, because our young and progressive minds in the past that were very assertive and tried to bring their voice into the space, their voices were silenced. So we have been too very cautious. But moving forward, I think
somebody has Zarina.
Zarina.
Sorry.
Thank you. I have a question. For Vidu, they do have a platform, and that's great. But if
sorry, sorry, my host, can you hear me?
No, Dr. Onyango, we can hear you. Go ahead. Paul, for that interference. Go ahead.
Yes, so I was saying that my rallying call is just like the way parents always encourage children to do better than them in every way. Yeah, most likely your children have better education than you have. You encourage them to pursue things that you're not able to pursue as a parent. But I think that is the call we must give to our young people now, so that where our parents, where our leaders, our political parties, our systems have failed, the movement that we build going forward must be centered on the sole vision of doing those things better, correcting them. Where people have been bought in the past, we must ensure that we lead, we put up a leadership that will stand with us and that will not be bought. And in case someone is bought or someone is compromised, we must be bold enough to disassociate with them, to expel them from our movement, and let them cross over and go and join the old way of doing things. We shall move on. We shall elect or find other better leaders who can stand in their positions. But the fact that leadership has failed us in the past should not be a reason for us to stand on the fence and risk having this movement die down and all of us going back to the old order just because we feared leadership, because leadership has failed us. Where our political parties have failed in the past, we must, when the time comes when the movement will put up a political wing, it must be a political wing that is going to do things differently from the way the existing political parties are operating. So that is why and I think I will be taking this message to Anthony and his organization, that as we build that political wing, I had one of my previous speakers here say that if you're interested in politics, you're a Gen Z, you want politics, go and vie for elections in 2027. But my challenge is, we know our political system as it stands today. As currently constituted, how many Gen Zs can run a successful campaign, even for an MCA position in the village? Yeah, we know how much resources are required as presently constituted for you to be able to put up your face in the political space in this country. So telling a Gen Z that if you feel you are a leader and you can take up a political role, you go, let us meet you on the ballot. I think that would be an insult to our young people. It behooves this movement to be able to nurture a new crop of leadership, identify young people who are promising, who are talented, who are gifted in leadership, nurture them on matters of integrity, nurture them on matters of the Constitution, nurture them so that they can be aware of where we have come from, where we are, and where we need to go. Be able to support them in terms of resources. But if we just push them that, oh, you go, how will they survive in this rough political environment in this time? So I think it behooves us as a movement to be deliberate while we push these reforms, these revolution in various wings. One of the wings must be, how do we nurture a leadership that is going to take over from this current leadership that has failed us? Because it has been said time and again that if you don't get to the decision to the table, probably you're on the menu. And we have been on the menu for far too long. The only sustainable way to bring tangible change, reforms, accountability, transparency in this country is to be able to get into those positions of leadership. And there is no better positions of leadership than parliament. Whoever is able to control parliament today, Ruto has been able to do all these things he has done to us that we've been complaining about because he has control over parliament. Why does he have control over parliament? Because he has enough numbers in there. And now he has crossed over to the opposition and also garnered from the other side. What prevents us as young people from putting ourselves in order so that by the time the next election comes, we have nurtured, empowered, and supported a new crop of leadership, young, fresh minds, not only young, but even people, millennials, the other generations, as long as they are people of integrity who identify with the movement, who are united with us on the shared vision that we now have for this country, a country free of corruption, free of nepotism, free of all these odds that we have seen in this government. And when we say Ruto must go, I think this had been clarified several times. That is the rallying call that has brought us together. We are not talking about necessarily about Ruto in person. His person comes just because he's the person holding that office. But what we are saying is Rutoism must go. All that embodies Ruto and his movement is corruption, nepotism, cronyism, impunity, disregard for the rule of law, disobeying the constitution, the DPP dropping cases of corruption left, right, and center based on which side of the political divide you are. That is what we mean by Ruto must go. Everything that he embodies, that his leadership or that his presidency embodies, must go. Whether he goes today, or he goes on Nane, or he goes on 2027, what we are saying is that old order needs to go. And when it goes, the big question we should ask ourselves, will we be found ready with an alternative crop of minds and leaders, people who have been prepared to take over, and people who can be able to put in place this new order that we are talking about? So that must be nurtured through an organized movement. One of the reasons Ruto today, I can assure you, if elections were held today under the current systems, I wouldn't be surprised if Ruto gets back to power and majority of his people. Why? Because this movement now is strong here in Nairobi. How many people from my village, and this I have asked in several forums, from my village in Migori, where I come from, in fact, Nyatike, who are on X space, who know about this revolution? But somehow, once we organize a movement and have an entity that is constitutional, that is legally recognized in law, that has legitimacy to be able to raise even resources to sustain this movement within a legitimate forum, a forum that you will not wake up tomorrow and you are told Mchanga has been closed and your contributions have been reversed to members. And that time, maybe you have a serious thing to do with those funds. So once we rally together and we are organized, we can be able to decentralize this message. We can be able to do more impactful civic education to the border guy in the village who, when a politician goes with 100 bob or 50 shillings, they will be bought and they will vote them back into power. That is why we need organization, so that as we move forward, we will structure and take this movement. We have if elections go up to 2027, we have 3 years during which our work is clearly cut out. We cannot wait any longer to come and organize in 2027. We must organize now and move forward, be able to nurture people, be able to bring this revolution and convert all these efforts we have made into meaningful change in this country. Thank you so much for the effort. My name is Dr. Duncan Onyango. I am a millennial. I teach at the Technical University of Kenya, where I interact with Gen Zs on a daily basis. And the reason I decided to join this active side of the revolution is because of the suffering I see my students go through. I have very young people in class. People now come, these Gen Zs come to campus very young, as young as 16-year-olds, 17, you have them in campus. There are people who need guidance. They need nurturing. But then we put them there. Our system is not working. The new university funding model is shrouded in mystery. So you see people really suffering. These are people we need to nurture and guide them into the next level. That is why I said I can no longer keep quiet. Even though I work for a public university, I will put my voice to be heard, and we will be able to speak, because I know meaningful, the universities, the faculty, university students, organizations in those days of Akina Professor Kibwana, I know we got a lot of, there are a lot of influence on even the matters of this nation. But we came at a time where even the university students organizations were diluted. They are not as strong as they used to be. We need to nurture these young people around this revolutionary spirit of Gen Z, so that we get back to have strong and meaningful students' unions that can be able to have impactful change on issues of national importance, like the way the SONUs of old could be able to do. Thank you very much, and may God bless us as we proceed.
Thank you so much, Daktari. Really, that was, just my challenge. Umesema nyatike. I think let's start with civic education, pale kwenye nyumba, and then community. Let's do our part. Let's all play our role. Allow me to bring, I was looking for the young man, Kennedy, lakini nadhani amedrop. These are the challenges of internet, technology, but we are able to communicate. Please, let's grow this movement. Let's follow LNET. Let's follow Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. They're in partnership, and also reach out to them. Kuna namba hapo ya ndugu yangu Karioke amepeana. Please give a title, share your thoughts. The next topic, what do you want us to discuss? And some of these forums will be held regularly. The topic of today is Generation Z's. Which way forward? Allow me to bring Professor Kivutha Kibwana. He has speaker right kutuzungumzia. And in my own personal capacity, and I think a lot of you will agree with me, he has been there for all of us. Amekuwa governor wa Makueni. He has, even before that, he was a professor of law at the University of Nairobi and nurtured a lot of you. Where is his stand on all this? And I know he's spoken on a lot of spaces, guiding, sharing the way forward, giving his thoughts. Kuna wale ambao wanamuingilia, wewe ulikwenda kusalimiana na President Ruto. I think he is also human and he has a right to do what is right for him. And he will give us his thoughts. What is the way forward, Generation Z? Which way forward, Professor Kibwana? Karibu.
Asante sana Rosemary, Kariuki, Elnet, na sisi sote for this very, very important conversation. And also I must appreciate Anthony, because he has told us that this is something that in his space they have also been battling with. Let me say, Rosemary, that to really get a way forward, there are fundamental questions, and I think there have been raised issues. One of them, which the Gen Zs are battling with, Kufa Kupona, is how to change the system of 61 years, which was based on colonial times. And then, how do you have leaders for this new system, latest by 2027? And do you achieve that through regime change now, using Article 1 and 37, or regime change in 2027, or a combination of these two? I think those are, like, for me, what are fundamental questions that must be faced on frontally so that this movement does not abort. And we know of previous movements which did a lot, but they did not conclude the fundamental change that is being sought. And so, even as Gen Zs talk about they're leaderless, they are partyless, you know, they are tribeless and all that, then they must also ask, through what they are doing from June and July and now the third month and going forward, how do they propose to have new leaders latest 2027, the majority of leaders in the decision-making spaces like parliament by 2027, so that they can say the majority of these people now are Gen Zs, Gen Ys, Gen Xs, especially. Because if one runs away from that conversation, then it is like the movement will be attacking itself, and it is not destined to produce the system change and the leadership from the young people and whoever else who, you know, might be, you know, the older generation, whoever else, they might want to be part of that. So I think for me, those are fundamental questions. But having said that, and I heard the cry of the colleague from Samburu, and I hope LSK, we shall talk to LSK so that they can ask lawyers who are there to assist. But I think the movement has done very well in terms of vision creation, especially using Article 10 and the Constitution. And, you know, saying clean leadership, no tribalism, no corruption, country that works, implement the Constitution. And it is a movement that vis-a-vis vision, it is values full, ethics full, principle full. That is what is intended. And even for us in this forum, for a lot of us in this forum, where there is Christian leadership or faith leadership, we know that from the Bible, these values are there. And I think it was the first speaker who talked about Christ-likeness, Christ-like, and said that that's very, very fundamental for people in this. So I think this vision, in terms of creating the Ubuntu, the Utu, creating what, for example, Malema of South Africa was doing. But let us remember, even Malema of South Africa, eventually, even when ANC was weakened, they went to DA, the party of people who were already in apartheid before, instead of going together with Malema and Umkhonto wa Sizwe. And I liked what Professor Kirui said, be and champion the change we need, the change we deserve. Because that if again Gen Zs do not work on themselves so that these values that they're talking about get to be incarnated within the bulk of this that generation, or those millennials, Gen Zs, millennials, and X. If that doesn't happen, still you'll get a leadership from them which aspires to the same things, that the leadership that they're complaining about. So, and that's actually the hard work. The hard work usually is that values, ethics, principle. That is even within our Christian faith, we know that that is one of the difficult issues. So I am reasonably myself in terms of the vision creation. I think there is a lot of achievement, and the courage, the fearlessness, the determination. Now, then we go to how do you achieve that vision? And usually you have broad strategies and you have specific strategies. And I think it's important, like if, for example, the Gen Z movement by now, it would be talking about what's our manifesto? What is it that we are telling Kenyans in concrete terms through, some research? Like a group is told, do this research, we'll discuss it in all our forums. And we begin to say and discuss it, Kenyans, this is the alternative vision. This is now the vision concretized in terms of what could be implemented. I think that's an important thing to do. There is the talk of the civic education. That's an important thing to do. I will not repeat much about that because it's very essential so that people in Nyatike, people wherever, they know that this is really where we are going, and we are going away from Egypt to Canaan, to use that metaphor. Then, like those people are 18 years who don't have IDs, who don't have voting cards, how do you help them? How is there a sub-movement, like a sub-movement of the manifesto, a sub-movement of civic education, a sub-movement of the 18 ID voting cards? How do you get that? Including diaspora rights, voting rights, how do you assist that? Another sub-movement of leadership mentoring and training, so that the young people who should come into these positions, there is like master classes, there is a way we assist so that happens. Then public participation, like this vetting, how is it followed? These bills which are coming, this new finance law, this whatever, so that the Gen Zs, the movement marks what is being done by government and the opposition, mundu kwa mundu, and there's a response. Should we even get to a position where they will have such a shadow IBC? So those are the elements in terms of the strategy. Of course, the broad strategy is like the demonstrations. But then these demonstrations, of course, if one says that Nane will do the job, and then what next after that, I think that is something to be discussed. But if it is going to take time until 2027, if that is also the other possibility, then all those what I was calling sub-movements must be worked on, so that you don't get an aborted situation like the Arab Spring, many of those countries. Whoever, after they got the leadership out, the opposition came in and it was the same as the leadership, the one they got out, that kind of stuff. And so that is why, because I think I've taken a bit of time, I liked what Anthony said in terms of the discussions about what next, and how can all those actors now come together and be able to say that this is the summary of what we can do to go forward. Let's discuss that, let us agree. And even Kenya Alisi, who usually, does not like these old people like myself to be involved because they have let them down. But he also said that maybe there can be a forum to agree on now the summary, what, like Anthony was saying, and then Kenya said Alisi, maybe then people can come and say, now we have agreed on these 5 points or these 10 points about strategy going forward. And so finally, I had many things to say, because when Kariuki asked me, Brother Kariuki, I took time and even wrote a small article, which I hope to publish on this matter. But finally, let me just share, although I've taken quite a bit of time, but let me share our experience in terms of in the late 80s, I was involved in the change from one party to multi-party, and with others, of course. I just come from USA after finishing my doctoral studies. And there it was the political opposition, civil society, and the universities. The students did a lot of work. And of course, we got the multi-party. But the lesson there was when the opposition got it, it thought that that was it. And there wasn't proper organization, even opposition unity took a long time because there was that disunity, which also means that if there's disunity among this Gen Z movement, that will also hurt it. Then I got involved in NCC, where we were saying now we want a new constitution. And there, the lessons were, the existing government is very resilient. They have all the instruments of power. So they can wear you out, they can, take you forward, backwards, and so on. Therefore, don't ever underestimate them. Then the other thing that we learned was the political opposition and the government, when they realize that they are losing power, then they come together. And if you are not ready for that onslaught, like has happened now, that can also vanquish you. Then we also learned that even the people, the ordinary people themselves, when they see change is taking long, they also get tired. So you have to do whatever it takes to get them continuously interested in the work that is happening and for them to be part of it. Then one thing that we did, I think, right, was we developed a lot through research and working in civil society with the academicians, all the things that we wanted, like the prototype constitution, like, what kind of changes. And that's important because it has to be there so that people can interact with it, people can do public participation on it, and so on. So that is that concreteness. Like now, all these expenses, if somebody, they are recorded, if somebody, is able to say, this is what is emerging, that would be very, very useful. Then we also had this question, this is where I shall end, this question of group leadership. For a long time, we just worked, we said, actually we worked with like this Gen Z movement. We said that you be a leader where you are best able to do something. If you're a good leader in civic education, do that. If you're a good leader in terms of talking in the podiums, do that. So that is what we did. But eventually we came to a position where there was group leadership. And then we elected like a spokesperson. But then even this group leadership, the beauty of it was it could not announce anything, even through the spokesman, until there was agreement. So that it was really a mouthpiece of collective decision from the movement. And therefore, I thought that maybe those are some of the lessons that can be useful in terms of Gen Zs, which way forward. But of course, as older people, we can only offer, advice. We can, because it would not be good to impose ourselves, and it will be good if this country has, a majority of fresh leadership, which is committed to doing better than the past.
Asante sana, Professor. Tunashukuru. Those are really very pertinent points that you brought up. And as I keep saying, credit to you and others. We stand on your shoulders. Kena Gitobi, Manyara, mlikuwa pamoja. The young Turks, you led the way. You did your best, and you're still there. Mumepeana nafasi kwa Generation Z. Really. Vijana kama kina Anthony, kudos to them. I would like to bring Professor Tim Kiruhi, not now, utaniwia radhi kidogo, labda tupate Generation Z, manake topic ya leo ni Generation Z, which way forward. Tukitoka kwa mzee, tunaingia kwa kijana, alafu tunarudi kwa mzee. So Professor Kiruhi, please be on standby, and also David Wagata, pia utaweza kuzungumza na wengine ambao mnataka kuzungumza, just ask for speaker rights, and then, but in that order. Tupate labda kijana Kigo, uko tayari kuzungumza? You can unmute kama hujapeana submission yako. If you are Generation Z, utupatie which way forward. Umemsikia professor hapa amezungumza. Walifanya kazi yao. They are still there, guiding, sharing. Nyinyi mmejiita formless, leaderless. Sawa, you are doing it differently, and we appreciate that. Kigo, uko tayari ama mwingine kijana ambaye anataka kuzungumza?
Thank you, madam.
Go ahead.
I'm grateful. for the chance, and it was very good to be in this forum for the presentation, and especially from lessons from the 80s, Dr. Kibwana, Prof. That was very good happened, and the input and the guidelines are very good in terms of trying to organize Gen Z. I'm not particularly a Gen Z in the millennial group, but I'm in support of whatever is happening, because we feel that we must reform this nation to work for us, because we have no other nation to run into other than just our country. And we cannot continuously sit around and watch as those that are in power destroy it. I've been a good follower of Professor Kibwana for many years, from the time he was Minister for Justice. He was governor, and with him you can actually, as a budding leader, you can actually look forward to having his skills and his leadership style of leadership working for you, because you could actually see the results of his commitment to the people and to his calling, the leadership that he has, and that is a good lesson. Now, on today's topic, the way forward, I think the discussion of crystallizing on what we need to do is very important. We cannot just fight and then just let those that are in power, or the shadow government, so to speak, the opposition, take credit for what happened. Like what happened recently. ODM is in bed with government as we speak, but they slid using the blood of those that died, the Gen Zs and the millennials, into government. They are taking the trophies for efforts that they never put. They are enjoying efforts of Gen Zs and millennials, but this is not how things are supposed to be. I mean, even Ruto, the president, seems to be clueless that there's a problem, a political problem, so to speak. But then instead of offering real solutions, instead of taking advantage of this, the chance that he had been given by young people to come and reform the nation, to walk away from politicians and, offer real leadership by working with professionals and people who are committed to changing the nation, he went back because he seems to be clueless. He is not committed to change. He thinks that the problem is coming from the political part of the government, but from the political side of, the opposition, but it is not. The challenges that are faced in this nation as we speak are from bad leadership. We are responding to his bad leadership. So when he runs to his fellow crooks and appoint them into government, it shows that he is not in touch with reality on the ground. He is not ready to offer a solution. He is not willing. He is just playing politics as he has been for many years. And this is, very irritating as people who believe that this nation can work for us. Like, which government would take pride in saying that they are paying air tickets, which is of course a lie, to its young generation, the energetic generation, to go work elsewhere in the world? The amount of energy with young people, mental and even physical, is so great that if it was harnessed, we could transform this nation in a very short time. Bringing them on board and taking up their ideas, because they're exposed. The challenge is that we are so exposed to what is happening in the other world, but we do not have a chance to live the life that we see being lived. We do not have a chance to implement the changes that, is happening in those other countries. We have the access to information, but we do not have a chance. We do not have a willing government that is willing to work with us to make our country look and feel and even, serve the people like other nations are. So what happens? There is that gap that the people know that the government is not doing the right thing, and the people knows what they deserve because the people deserve more. But then the government is not willing to play ball. It just, most of those people in in those public offices are just after their own, just going out there and making money, which is wrong. Because once they are, a person is bestowed with responsibility of leading, then he should be able to forget self and, push what is common, would call the common good. But then do they do that? No, they don't. So we have a gap. We have people who have information, people who are exposed, people who cannot get what they think they deserve in their own country, and who, we cannot all of us move out of our country. That is, cowardly. We cannot all look out there and go enjoy effort of, years and years of hard work that people put up. And, putting up a country is not easy. If we all decided to go out there and enjoy, then we would be straining resources in those countries. Why don't we use innovation, and create the best that we can out of our own country? We have a legacy to leave. We have people who are coming after us. We are giving, we have progenies. What life do you want to show them? Do you want to show them that in Kenya you are just supposed to be born here and then you move out there for a good life? No, we can't. No, we can't. We need to work. We need to work, and we need to all, cooperate with everyone and bring everyone on board so that we create a country that we can, leave behind and be proud of what we left behind. But we cannot always cowardly run to these other countries and start working there and enjoying the ideas and the effort that their parents and grandparents and, the generation that came before them put up. So I think we need to be honest, all of us. And the way forward is that, for me, if a situation gets out of hand on 8th, of course, the current government is too selfish to, put their personal interests aside and, admit that they have lost favor with the people and resign. Things may go out of hand. But if the situation on Nane begets a new leadership, then be it. But if we cannot then be able to get a new government between now and 2027, then we need to lay down strategies of coming up with a government that works for the people, even if it means that by 2027, then we'll have a young generation a government that is responsive to our needs, all of us. So I will end it there. I'll continue to participate as I need to get into supermarket before they close here. Thank you.
Thank you so much ndugu yangu Kigo. Whether you're a millennial, nilikuwa nataka tu kubreak hiyo kidogo. Thank you for your thoughts. Civic education is paramount. We need to be honest. Professor Kivutha Kibwana ametuonyesha njia namna walivyofanya na bado wanaendelea. Let the Generation Z lead the way. Of course, the issue of civic education has been brought up. So Professor Kiruhi, kama uko tayari tafadhali, chukua mic, but at the same time, allow me to welcome Mchungaji Ruben Kigame, who has joined us. Karibu sana. Please ask for the speaker rights, ili pia na wewe utupatie mawazo yako. Need I say incoming president 2027? Lakini Professor Kiruhi, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Rosemary, together with Nganga Kariuki, our hosts on this platform. Allow me to also just associate myself with the protocols you've already observed of all the other leaders who have spoken here, and every participant. I've been listening since the beginning and been very encouraged by many people who have some such clarity of thought, whether they are younger people, middle-aged or older. I think the issue is that we are bound together here by common values, which is and a common vision for the kind of change that we need, the kind of Kenya that we need. Allow me to say that the International Leadership University is pleased to be a co-host of this platform as well, and we are looking forward to a good evening together. Just a few thoughts, and building really quite a bit on what Professor Kivutha Kibwana has shared with us. Thank you so much again for your consistency and the fact that you've been here and your encouragement to the younger people. Allow me to begin by defining leadership. Anyway, that's what our currency is, International Leadership University. It's not easy to define leadership. There are many technical definitions. My PhD is in leadership. But allow me to use one that I've adopted that I generally use, and then I'll break it down a bit to help us think through the idea of which way forward for Gen Zs. Leadership is inspiring willing followers to accomplish a cause that is beneficial and significant. Let me retake that again. Inspiring willing followers to accomplish a cause that is beneficial and significant. Each of those words is carefully chosen. The first one, inspiring, talks about vision, which Professor Kibwana has talked about very well, in terms of there needs to be a clarity of vision, something inspiring, something that talks about a better future. And I think this is what the Gen Z movement kind of began to show us. You mean change can happen without money, without bribes, without violence, because there was not even a violence. And that kind of began to give us a vision for a better future. That needs to be sustained. And of course, things like also cutting across tribes, not just tribes, but actually social classes. I remember the initial days when I watched people, even in the streets, people didn't care where you came from or even the social class. And I think that's what you're talking about. That's those kind of things need to be sustained. We need to find ways to make sure that that's not lost in the midst of everything else and so on. And of course, like maybe some of you have mentioned, what you really, the Gen Z movement pointed out is we want a values revolution, a return to morals and values, because that's what our sickness has been as a country. It's not lack of ideas. It is not even lack of resources. Can you imagine with all the corruption that we have, we somehow are still standing despite the debts? So the issue is values, morals, accountability, honesty, and so on. Anyway, so that's to do with the inspiration, the vision. The willingness there is that people don't follow just because you have a position. People follow because you can be trusted. And I think that comes back to us now, even as Gen Zs. Either Gen Zs are going to be trusted in the future with not only leadership, whether in the political space or even other sectors of society. We must be. That's why our slogan of be and champion the change we need. So the question of we cannot ask others to uphold values we are not upholding. Let me, and I've in a previous forum, I've talked about something as simple as, because I've had to do some introspection myself. Do I enjoy it when, because I am maybe well known or I have a title, or says, oh, professor, no, you can't queue, come, cut the queue and come, I will serve you. If I enjoy doing something like that, then I'm also, I enjoy the fruits of corruption, because that's corruption. These people came earlier, they were in the queue, they didn't get served. What I should rather demand is, no. You've been paid to serve all Kenyans, serve these people quickly, and all of us will benefit. I will not take much time on the queue. So how do we respond when we have opportunity? Because that's the challenge we've been having. We put in good people in the system, and then we say, oh, suddenly they have changed. No. I think it's something that, even to do with our hearts, that, that we check ourselves. Do I, enjoy simplicity? Am I content? Or do I want to be recognized and things like that? What is my motive? All those are questions of being. And I think we must look inward. If this movement is going to be sustained long-term, it's because of people who have deep character. They can be trusted. People will be willing to follow, not because of money, and so on. I remember going to a graduation party just after the 25th of June. And in fact, the whole graduation party was just telling the Gen Zs, thank you, because you've done something we never thought possible. That you can actually call for change in peaceful ways, and so on, without, the resources and so on. Because there's no way, young people will beat the old guards at this game of money. If that's the direction that, people are thinking about, there's no way. It has to be the game has to be redefined and so on. Then the third thing I would like to talk about, of course, is we talk about leadership has to do with having followers. And actually, in the leadership space today, even in new research that's coming out, we are actually acknowledging that followers are much more powerful than leaders. I know that that's not something we are used to. I think Ewagata spoke to that a bit earlier, the big man syndrome. We've been so consumed by it because we've seen it all our lives. But the truth is, followers are more powerful than leaders. Whether in an institution or organization, even at the university where I lead, International Leadership University, all the collective efforts of all the staff are much more than myself. So I have to acknowledge that. I have to, yes, I have a significant responsibility to inspire them, to lead them, to model, to hold them to account where necessary. But the truth is, together they do a lot more. So I think that's what the lesson for the Gen Z movement that needs to be sustained. that when followers are together, united by a common cause, and they can be trusted, they will be able to influence change. I mean, what other times have we seen without violence, without bloodshed? The president taking taking action on the basis of the request of the young people and so on. I mean, much as, of course, maybe we may have issues about how the people who have been chosen, because, of course, some of them have not so good records, as we are seeing even in the vetting, despite it not being a very thorough process. That, of course, these are already people who are corrupt, some of them, if they already have these millions that they have made in such a short period of time. So what do you expect them to do when they go back? And so on. Anyway, so the question of followership, I think, is important. I think the other thing is, I talked about accomplishing a cause. So being is important, but we must, of course, also do something. And I have some ideas here that I thought I would share with us quickly. One of them, we talk about championing the change we need. So there has to be something. And of course, our social media now, we know, is a powerful tool. So whenever I get on social media, what do I follow? Do I take time to write thoughts that are helpful? Do I write positive thoughts that are inspiring about change? Because that's a tool that young people have, even without much money, and so on. So the use of social media. Then influencing where we are, taking initiative. Something as simple as public participation that just requires us to be there. And when you get there, speak meaningfully. Even if you're young, people begin to realize, hey, that young person has some very good points. People begin to follow your leadership and so on. And then, of course, things like vetting of leaders. In the last 2 elections, I thought, at least at the level of my MCA, I need to know and influence who I vote for. Many of us vote for people we don't know. We depend on the parties to choose. But you can simply organize a vetting exercise in your neighborhood. I've done that for the last 2 elections successfully. No money, not much money spent. In fact, almost no money. Well, I simply find ways, border riders tend to know all their numbers. I call all of them. I tell them about the event. The moment I talk about the event and set up a venue just in my neighborhood, it is them who begin to chase me. And then we are able to engage with them and so on. And then what I found out, and of course, we have some people who have been in elected positions here. When the politicians know that you can actually gather people together and influence them to come together, whether it's 200 people or whatever number, especially at the MCA level, that's very influential. So these guys, if I call them even today, they don't take, the phone doesn't ring 2-3 times, they'll pick immediately. Anybody else try to call them, they will often be unavailable because they know you are important, and you can influence people. So you kind of begin to influence where you are. You begin to take action. But maybe because that's a bit further on down the line in the next elections, let's talk about the clubs that we are a part of, extended family, communities, circles, workplaces. Are there some leadership roles that you can begin to exercise? Because we can't wait just for 2027. It's too far down the road, so to speak, if you had no prior experience. So that even by the time you are going there, you can say, very well, I've been leading us in this initiative, whether it's a local cattle dip or whatever else is needed. Offer yourself for leadership. It will not be for money usually, because community efforts usually just need us to volunteer and so on, but that's important. And the final things, so that I don't take long, is that we need to lead with a mind of something that's beneficial and significant. Is this going to be helpful in the long run? We'll be able to keep the movement going if it is for the long term, if it is beneficial, not just for the leaders, but for the populace. People begin to say, no, this is about us. There's an initiative I started about 2009, and now it's about 15 years ago in my village, to do with helping improve primary school education. My wife and I supported the first effort. We did a prize giving day, but also talked about values and observing people who had demonstrated good values, not just good grades. In the first year, my wife and I put up the budget. The second year, my wife and I put zero money. People owned it. They said, this is for us. Because I share the vision. I tell them, I could not go to school here, but I'm part of this village. This village is part of who I am. When people are inspired, when people believe in something, of course, they have to trust your character. They'll be willing to put the resources. Kenyans can donate money if necessary, if they believe in the cause. So money is not quite the answer to everything. I think we put too much of a premium on money. We know it is important, yes, but I think there are many ways to go around the need for money. And then, of course, something that is, that's worth the sacrifice. It is significant and so on. So anyway, let me say this so that I don't take much longer. If you need some help in this space of leadership, maybe to clarify, I'd like to see change in a certain sector. I just don't know where to begin. Well, the International Leadership University exists for that. So long as there's an organized group of, say 20 or more, whatever number you can gather around you, since if you're a leader, you should also be able to inspire a few others who consider. Just write to us, through the website. Write us and tell us, you have a group that you'd like to have mobilized today with social media, with online resources. We can reach anybody across the country or even outside, wherever you are, we can be able to help. But I want to close with be and champion the change we need. This movement needs to be sustained. It will be sustained because we have a clear vision and values, and we can be trusted, and we are going to work for something that will outlast us. Thank you very much. Allow me to stop here because of time and to give others a chance. Thank you. Back to the moderators.
Be the champion you need, Professor Kiruhi. Go ahead, Ndugu Karaoke. Go ahead.
So thank you, Prof, for sharing those remarks. Indeed, it starts with us. The values, there is the place for values if we are to sustain this movement. So thank you very much for sharing that. And those who are interested in International Leadership University and what team has shared, our number, you can still reach the university through that number or check their website. I have received a number of messages through this number. Some are just saying hi, hi, hi. Please, we requested if you have some feedback or suggestions on the way forward, please share. Also, I have received messages, people asking how we are organizing Nane. Some want we support them to come to Nairobi. Please, as Elnet, we are not here to promote Nane. We are not here to support anyone to come for that. We are not fighting it, but also that is not the intention of this meeting. So please, I need to clarify that. So Rosemary, please proceed.
Thank you. Nane ni wewe mwenyewe kujituma. Professor Kiruhi has really given very good nuggets of information. I even shared it, I reposted. What we also do in these spaces ni kwamba kama kuna idea, some information that has been shared, ambayo imekugusa, and a lot of them zinatugusa. Unaiweka hapo because sharing is caring and it's also showing love. Na tukiwa hapa, allow me to really acknowledge what Elnet is doing. Na pia the Kenya Christian Professional Forums ambao who've come together to really call this space, and they are partnering and they'll be holding these spaces regularly. Sasa tumetoka kwa Professor Kiruhi, tunataka sasa kijana. Can we get a lady please? Labda speaker rights apewe. So far we have Moses and we have who else has speaker rights? Moses, unaweza kufungua mic uzungumze as we also give rights to Honorable Ruben Kigame. Moses, go ahead. Dakika mbili tafadhali, yeah?
Thank you, Rosemary, and everyone else. Thank you, Elnet, ILU, and KCPF for organizing this forum. Our esteemed guests and speakers, thank you everybody for showing up. Let me start from where Dr. Kiruhi left, or something he mentioned. He saw some positives in the Gen Z movement, in that they have been able to bring change in an unorthodox method, not using money as we are usually accustomed to, but using something else that is at their disposal, the power in their masses, in their numbers. So that is something I also see that's a positive. Somebody mentioned something about forming political parties as a bargaining tool. Personally, I feel that we don't need to bargain or negotiate with the government in power. This is because the demands have already been placed on the table. The Gen Z want accountability in government. They want corruption to stop. And I don't think this government has shown any good faith effort to stop corruption and to be accountable to the people. In fact, they have gone ahead to shoot and kill peaceful demonstrators. So I don't think there is any good faith effort or good faith in this government to negotiate with anybody else who is of contrary opinion to them. So what I would say, the way forward is to continue the push for this government to relinquish power. They have failed to account for loans that have been taken before. They are killing innocent protesters. And to me, they seem to be irredeemably corrupt. So my advice to Gen Z is to continue to stay the course and use the tools that are at your disposal. When Moses was at the burning bush, and I'm not using Moses because my name is Moses, but when Moses was confronted by God at the burning bush, God asked Moses, "What is in your hands?" And Moses said, "A staff." And that staff Moses used to do a lot of miracles with. It was what was in his hand. So I would ask the Gen Z to use what is in their hand, the tools that are immediately at their disposal to bring meaningful change. So I would encourage them to stay the course. And for the government in power, these sideshows that we are seeing, the recycling of leadership, really, I don't think the Gen Z is buying that. Maybe others may buy and follow closely the vetting of these recycled leaders, recycled CSs, but I don't think the Gen Z is buying that. And hence, I would advise the government in power, if they are to show some goodwill and come and reason with the Gen Z, be accountable, stop the killing of innocent protesters, and do the honorable thing. If they cannot have the confidence and the trust of the people of Kenya, as can be seen by the numerous demonstrations that we are seeing through the Gen Z, and who have the support of Kenyans, most Kenyans who may not necessarily be in that age bracket, but they support them. So if this government is keen and has some goodwill, let them listen to what the Gen Z is saying. Let them resign, let them put together the IEBC to facilitate a change of leadership. And the Gen Z, let me encourage you, you have done something, as somebody mentioned, that the previous generations have not been able to do, that we only thought could be done by money, by having lots and lots of money. You have been able to mobilize and even have the finance bill thrown out, 2024 thrown out. So that is something positive, and I would encourage the Gen Z to continue, stay the course until the demands that have been laid down by yourselves are met. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Tunashukuru sana with the thoughts that you've given. Kila mtu anapeana divergent views and you have every right to express yourself. Bwana Wagata, sijui umepata mahali ambapo pazuri, because when you were speaking, you were not very clear towards the tail end. If you can be on standby, ili tumuulize the real Joe. The real Joe, unataka kutupatia mawazo yako? I'm sure you are Generation Z from your profile. Karibu, the real Joe.
Asante sana, Rosemary, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this space. So basically, I'll just go straight to the point for me. The discussion is which way forward, and I think for me, I'll not take it really as which way forward, because we are marching, and but I just want to talk briefly about the significance of our march. I heard Professor Kivuta talk. I know he was they are part of the team that did their Sabasaba in 1990, and we are doing our way now this time round. That's why we made it Nane. So basically, for me, instead of way forward, I want to give you the significance of our march, as well as what we are really aiming to achieve on that Nane with the Nane march. We have been mistaken by a lot of people for what our main aim is. I've had a lot of talks about what this movement is really trying to do and all those kind of things. Today, I got immediately after the vetting of the CS Mbadi, someone just called me to tell me, you see what I was trying to tell you. You see what I was trying to tell you. The guys who were selected from ODM were very sharp and all that. But I wanted to I reminded that person that, you know what? You remember the first year of this regime? What was going on the headlines? There were talks in the headlines of micromanagement, and there were talks in the dailies of decisions being made in the various ministries without the knowledge of the PSS. And therefore, I reminded this person that, you know what, you can have a brilliant idea, but when the head of the fish is rotten, there's nothing you will do about it. So what is the significance of our march for Nane? We want to prove to the older generation. We don't want to really say the older generation, because for me, Gen Z, for me, it stands for Generation Zote, even though there's the other specific Gen Z. But we want to show the other people who think that the power does not belong to the people. We want to show them that the power belongs to the people. We've had enough of a bossy leadership, and this is what we want to bring an end to. So we want to exercise our powers directly. We don't have faith in parliament, and we already occupied it. Therefore, it is null and void to us. Any decision that are made from the parliament, and you can just even see from the vetting. You guys, you've gone through the vetting and you've seen how the vetting process is going on. I'm just shocked at what is that we are watching on national TV. Are we seeing a storytelling? I don't know whether we are seeing a drama festival. I don't know what is happening. That is not a vetting process. I have seen cabinet secretaries, nominees whose wealth has gone up, but the people who are vetting do not go further and ask how the wealth went up, and try to even find out further if taxes are also being paid by these people whose wealth has gone up in an economy that is perceived to be struggling. But I won't talk much about that. Those are some of the things that are just coming out in the limelight, and everybody is able to see. We are trying to exercise our powers directly, as mentioned, because we do not have faith in parliament, and we do not believe in representation of the current parliament. We do not believe it is in the best interest of the current of the people, and therefore we want to ensure that this Nane march brings an end to the current regime. And this is the reason why we want an end to the current regime. The leader of the current regime has been a deputy president in our country for 10 years. And currently, he has already been a president for 2 years. This is someone who is ideally is supposed to have very, very serious experience in terms of managing the affairs of a nation, but he has failed. His first agenda of 2023, when he took over the leadership of the country. He brought up the first agenda through the Finance Bill of 2023. We have seen that the court said it is unconstitutional, and therefore his first agenda, for me, that failed. His second agenda, we rejected the second agenda, and he agreed with us, and that second agenda of 2024 has failed. Therefore, the first 2 years, he has already failed. What is he going to do in the next 2 years? Because he only has 2 years to work for us in this first term. The other remaining 1 year, I know he will be campaigning, but he's already campaigning already from now, meaning he will not do a substantive work to turn around our economy as he thinks he can turn around the economy. And therefore, I don't think he deserves much time. Therefore, that is what we want, an end to the current regime. We want new leadership. The new leadership for us is a new dawn. And by leadership, we mean leadership. Because currently, we have bosses. We do not have leaders. We have bosses who will just try and push everything down our throat. One of the fundamental values of public service in our constitution is consultation. Every decision that has to be made, the people, public participation is key for public service in our country. And therefore, we have seen that there's zero public service from the current government. We've seen just recently the JKIA, and recently they're trying to cover up and calling the JKIA, the staff to come and say that public participation was done. Just things are being done in a way that it is just shambles. And therefore, the biggest thing for us is to ensure that this regime just comes to an end. That's why we are asking the president to do the honorable thing and just step aside. It is not a crime for him to, I don't know why it is a crime in our country to think about a president leaving office before the term ends. I don't know why people are making it look like it is overthrowing the government, it is trying to do a coup. I don't know why people are making it that way. It is just being honorable that you have been in the presidency for 12 years. It is honorable that if the people tell you, step aside, just step aside. It is just honorable. I don't understand. So those are some of the things that we as the young generation are trying to come up with. And we are seeing that the older generation is giving support to the youth, which is a good thing. We are encouraged by that. And I also want to persuade all of you, and most of you who are here, to turn out for the Nane. It is going to be peaceful. It is going to be just our peaceful picketing and everything. Yes?
No, go ahead. Go ahead, but land.
Okay. So I'm trying to beseech all of you to turn up for the Nane and come and support the young people. I'm really asking you this because you were already from the intelligence, you know so well that even the Gen Alpha will come out. So come out and protect your children. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Real Joe. Moving on, we are now tunaingia sundown ambapo we need to conclude shortly, lakini before that we will exhaust the speaker panel. So kama tumekurequest kama Honorable Ruben Kigame, if you can pick up the speaker, ili uzungumze. I just want to also acknowledge my good friend Nyorude, who is here. Karibu sana. Please repost, retweet. Can we get Rianga? Rianga, tafadhali, fungua mic. 2 minutes. Rianga.
Hey, good evening.
Go ahead. Karibu sana. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm grateful to share the platform with great people that I can see as speakers today. But I just have a few questions to pose because the question here is which way forward? One of the things that I have noticed, even the immediate speaker talking about is resignation of the president. And one of the fundamentals that they had was resignation or demoting all the cabinet, which was done. Unfortunately, quite a big number of those who are fired have been rehired. And so the question for me is, the reason why the financial bill generated a lot of heat and demonstration by the Gen Z was the fact that that financial bill had been passed by Parliament. The same people that are now vetting the cabinet. Where do we get the vote of confidence for the same people who voted yes? And now they are actually vetting the new appointees for the cabinet. The last question, because I was only given 2 minutes. We do not have IEBC in place. And the resignation of the president would trigger, I think I've raised this in previous forums, will trigger a political, not a political, a legal or constitutional crisis, if you will. How do we go to the polls without IEBC in place? Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you again to see Professor Kivuta Kibwana and my namesake, Ruben Kigame. Thank you.
Thank you, Rianga, and you've given your divergent views. You have every right to express yourself. Wewe ni Mkenya na unasema kilicho kwenye roho yako. Karibu sana. For the speakers, na Professor Kivuta Kibwana, na kuomba utupatie dakika kidogo ili there's been some directed questions to you, thoughts, just in conclusion. Can we get now ring the bell 254. Fungua mic tafadhali, ring the bell. And then next it will be Honorable Ruben Kigame.
Asante sana. Na nikichangia kwa mjadala ambao unauliza mwelekeo ni upi. Naona kama mwelekeo ambao tunatakana tuichukue kuanzia sasa ni kuwa macho kuangalia ni nini inatendeka katika pembe zote za nchi. Kwa mfano mimi naangalia kotini, naona kuwa kuna mjadala zingine ambazo zimeendelea pale kotini, na ile mswada wa SHIF, Social Health Insurance Fund, naona ni kama koti imeongea. Sasa sisi tunatufaa tuko macho na kuelekeza macho yetu yote pale na kuona ni nini koti imesema, ili isije tena ikabadilishwa kwa namna ambayo hatutakuwa tumeelewa. Tumeona juzi tena koti imeongea juu ya mambo ya fedha, mswada wa mwaka ambao uliopita. Tunafaa kuwa sasa saizi tunafungua macho, tunajifunza sisi pia kama wananchi wa Kenya, Generation Z wakiwemo, viongozi wetu wakiwemo, kwa sababu mara mingi sana hizi vitu zimekuwa zikitendeka hata hizo miaka ambazo zilipita, lakini hatujaweza kujihusisha kikamilifu katika masuala kama hayo. Tumesikia hata kwa wale ambao wamechangia mjadala wa leo wakisema kuwa ile msasa ambao unaendelea saizi bungeni wa kuwachuja ama kuwapea kazi hawa cabinet secretaries, kwa kidogo haiendeleni na ile mpangilio yao ama matarajio yao. Hasa sisi kama wananchi na Wakenya ambao tunapenda nchi yetu, wazalendo, tunafaa tunaangalia na tunaangazia zaidi, kwa sababu chapter 6 of the Kenyan Constitution should be the key guiding figure ambao wale ambao wanawafanyia msasa wanafaa kubase on. Sasa kama mtu anaulizwa swali kuhusiana na ile mali ambayo uko nayo, na ni swali tu ambayo haifuatiliwi kwa undani, inafaa kuwa inatushangaza. Lakini I know there are a lot of things that we have said there before. Our lawyers had promised that this is unconstitutional. Sasa tunajaribu kuwapea nafasi, labda wakati ambapo watateuliwa tutawaangalia wale ambao wamepewa kazi kwa mara nyingine, na tutaenda kwa sheria tuangalie kama kweli wanafaa kuwa pale. Kwa sasa nawashukuru sana kwa kunipea hii nafasi na tuzidi kujulishana na kuelimishana. Asanti.
Asante sana Ring kwa mawazo yako, matamshi yako, namna ulivyozungumza, mwelekeo wako, na pia kutuita kuwa tuungane na wewe kwa mawazo ambayo umepeana. Kama nilivyosema hapo awali, hii ni nafasi yetu. Waliotuleta pamoja ni Elnet na Kenya Christian Professionals, ndio wametualika kuja kwenye nyumba yao, lakini mawazo ni yetu. Kinachotuuma, kinachotufinya ni nini haswa? Yes, tuna rais. Ni namna gani tunaweza kufikia kwenye shikio lake kusema kuwa tumechoka, mwelekeo ni huu, kazi tuliyokupatia ilikuwa ya miaka 5, lakini tunaona umelegeza, kuna vitu ambavyo hufanyi sawasawa na tunataka mabadiliko, hatuyataki kesho, tunayataka leo. Tukiwa tunaendelea na mawazo hayo hayo, sasa ni mwelekeo wa kumaliza, lakini kabla hatujamalizia, na kuomba Anthony ujiandae, Murithi, wewe ni Generation Z, pia utupatie mawazo yako na pia utuambie space yako unaifanya lini, lakini tumpate Mheshimiwa Ruben Kigame kutupatia mawazo yake. Karibu kiongozi.
Thank you very much, Elnet, and thank you, KCPF, for organizing this space. Thanks also, Professor Kibwana and Professor Kirui for the great insights, and everybody else who has shared this evening. I joined a little late because of a function I was at, but I've caught up with quite a number of important things. I would just like to make 3, or if I find time, 4 points. I would like to share those 4 points, beginning with where we are as a nation, and then I have some proposals. I feel we are at a very, very awkward place as a nation, because we have fundamental problems, real serious problems, but we are dealing with them in a very detached manner. And the progression of the Gen Z revolution is being hijacked by partial responses to fundamental problems. And this may play on either side. It may play on the side of the state, where, for example, you ask for the sacking of an entire cabinet and the reconstitution of a national team. And then there is a reshuffling. You know, that in and of itself should show you that we have a problem, because you'd be promising with one hand and taking with the other. And so in my view, where we are at, I'm concerned that we are probably getting comfortable with rogue approaches to a serious problem. We have not overcome the position that we are dealing with a captured parliament, a parliament that is captured by the executive. If you go back to how they dealt with the agriculture minister on the issue of fake fertilizer, where actually parliament votes that he should be impeached. But then there is a rescue team that is set in place to sanitize him. That is the kind of parliament we are dealing with. So every time you look at a parliament vetting all these guys, already vetting a group that is rogue in constitution, you have 2 problems. First, the team itself is rogue because it has people who have scandals, people who've been flaunting all the wealth in public, being given positions. And then you have a parliament that always does the will of the executive. So if you have that scenario, the vetting process itself becomes useless ab initio. And I'm very bothered that we are comfortable with Parliament even doing the process of vetting. Having said that, I would like to say that the fix that we are looking for, that the Gen Zs have been looking for, and what some of us have already been looking for in terms of values and so on, even before the Gen Z revolution, is about rebooting Kenya. Is about starting again, putting systems in place that work. And so it's going to take remnants that believe in this reboot coming together and helping the Gen Zs with the process of realizing it. That is one reason I support Nane, because the work is not done. And because the government is hijacking the process through violence, of course, and through sideshows. So today it's the vetting process, tomorrow it will be IBC, another time it will be the so-called impeachment motion around the deputy president, etc. A lot of sideshows. And we have always to be eye open on sideshows. What we really want is a reboot of the country. And we must not take our eyes off that goal, so that the foundations that have been destroyed, and they have not been destroyed by this government alone. Uhuru and the previous governments have perfected scandals, very, very serious corruption cases. And so a reboot would mean not just values, but also identifying leaders that are not tainted. I keep saying it's not about having angels, but it's about proven records of people we put in office. If someone has been known to have adverse records of character, you know that they've looted and or they have abused office and so on, they should never, never be near office. They shouldn't. Now to some suggestions. I could go on that tangent, but to some suggestions. I think one critical thing ELNET and KCPF could do for the country would be to perfect a tool that they have kept talking about in different ways the last few years. When I was running for office, I knew that they were talking about this. And that is having some kind of scorecard, making public a scorecard of minimums that anyone who goes into office must have, so that you'll not smell any leadership nomination or election if you cannot fulfill these 3 or 7 things. I think we need to push that as hard as possible so that values drive those minimums and we popularize them like crazy in churches, mosques, media, social media notwithstanding. We need that scorecard like yesterday. And the kind of scorecard that says, I'm willing to be subjected to this particular minimums, without which nobody should be in office. Number 2, I have a suggestion, particularly for the Gen Zs, in terms of civic and political education. We know that the government often infiltrates any demonstration by hiring goons and or sponsoring violence and so on. And most of these are either young people and even colleagues, people we know. You will have a space and the government will buy somebody to say certain things within that space. So we know that the gullibility of certain Gen Zs because of the economic pressure and or hoodwinking, puts them in a place where they actually participate in harming other Gen Zs and or even, killing, because violence, can lead to death. So that we are looking at the police, but many times we forget that fellow young people are being hired for 500 bob, even to attend, these rallies, so that it looks like the government has crowds when it doesn't. It happened in Mombasa, it happened in Narok. We know that money is exchanging hands. So could we step forward as Gen Zs and hold spaces and or do WhatsApp group chats and face-to-face meetings that help our fellow young people not to be bought, not to be used as rags, not to be poisoned against the movement. I think we can certainly push that. Sometimes when you see border borders being hired, to chant things on behalf of the government, chances are they've been paid, in fact. So we need to sort of de-educate or demobilize those mobilizations. By the time you see goons coming in with sticks to fight Gen Zs and so on, it's because money is changing hands and tribal rhetoric is coming in place. So we need to up the game with demobilizing goons, especially those that are age mates and people we know. And then I think, the third thing I would say, we need to have a plan of escalation towards the nonviolent response to the crisis that we have, the kind of nonviolent organizing. We cannot just go out and go out and go out and go out. We would have to get to a point where we push the crescendo upwards. And we could use a combination of things. So, for example, Nane, I'm fully in support. But by the time the next one is called, we need to know exactly from Nane where are we going in case of it goes left, in case it goes right. So I personally support Nane. I'm mobilizing and so on. So I'm not here, working per se for LNet or KCPF. I totally believe that the efforts of Gen Zs needs to be taken to a crescendo. And the first level of crescendo would be to identify services, goods, and economic activities that support the government success in staying in power and muzzling us and fighting us and killing us. So we identify those particular businesses, services, etc., and sabotage them in a non-violent way. We can decide one day all of us will not buy bundles if we wanted to aim at, say, a particular company. Or we could say we will not buy particular goods that, belong to the company of so and so. And that could then escalate into sit-ins. I mean, we can say for one day, everyone will sit at home. They are the ones who run petrol stations. So no border, no matatu, no taxi will fuel. That is bound to take down certain companies and or get to the point where we all then say, we will not pay tax. Now, that is often called civil disobedience, but I don't like the word disobedience, because who is disobeying who on what basis? Now, I finish by saying that, if we are to go that direction, then the trade unions and other organized groups would have to come into a conversation of how to effect it. But we need to be thinking about that, because we cannot allow this government to continue muzzling us in a very deliberate way. No, I don't think it's the right thing to do. Now, to the church, because Elnet and KCPF are Christian groups. I don't think the church has come out loud enough in support of the Gen Zs and what they stand for. But we can do that. Just what if one Sunday, just what if, and if there are any leaders here from the church, you can think about this. One Sunday, we decide we are all taking our Sunday services to the streets. I mean, we're so packed up in our churches, happy with everybody who comes every Sunday, but there are many, many people out there that don't have access to church. So how about we take church to the streets, occupy the streets, and, show solidarity with the Gen Zs? I don't know whether, singing songs in praise of God and in praise of righteousness and so on. Ron Kenoli's song, Loud on the Streets, righteousness, peace, joy in the Holy Ghost, righteousness, peace and joy in the Holy Ghost. That's the kingdom of God. Don't don't you want to be a part of the kingdom? Imagine 5,000 people screaming that on the streets. And we need to show solidarity because as a church, we have betrayed this nation. I mean, not everybody, but it is obvious that the church is not sitting pretty, is not sitting good. And it is time we showed greater solidarity, because even at the point where we were discussing the finance bill and so on, we saw people go to State House. Some pastors went to State House. It's not so much what you talk about, how you can advise the president, who is at this point seeming unadvisable. It's the optics. It's the optics. When we say we don't want any more harambes, and then the next Sunday you find the president in church doing a harambe, asking, how he can participate in this, the church should come out and say, we said no harambes. So we need to do more. So I really appreciate what is going on the space tonight, but there's a lot to think about. And for Gen Zs, nature abhors vacuum. So yes, you may be leaderless and whatever. I like tribeless, but leaderless, you can't be leaderless forever. You will need to run for office. You will need to organize to take MCA, MP, women rep, governor, senator positions. If you can, president, just take it, because you know what you want. You have an idea of what Kenya we want. So I think that the discussion should begin to be how you can be leaders, and not tomorrow, now. Leaders now. I would like to differ as I close on the issue of the IEB center vacuum. The Constitution in Article 1 gives power, absolute power actually belongs to the people of Kenya. So you can also decide what to do with the limbo that lies between the resignation of the president and the appointment of a new government, the referendum notwithstanding. And even if the IEBC was appointed today, I'm sad to say it would look like this. Raila appoints some people, Ruto appoints some people, and you call it an IEBC. There might be, some kind of partial involvement from the LSK and so on, but chances are that this whole process, because of how dirty government is, can also be flawed. So we have to be thinking beyond getting an IEBC, commissioners and so on appointed. We also must know where do they lean politically. Thank you.
Umemaliza kiongozi?
Nimemaliza.
Shukran kabisa. Thank you so much for your ideas, way forward, contributions. Siku zote unatupatia mawaidha, something to ponder on, something to reflect on, something to sleep over, something to pray over. Na wale ambao hukubaliani nao pia unasema. Tunakushukuru kwa hayo mawazo. Sasa tukiwa kwenye lala salama, nataka nimpishe mwenzangu ndugu Karioki kuleta wale wageni wengine as we finish. Na nimeona ndugu yangu hapa Joe Agashiko alikuwa amekataa, lakini ameona haizi kusimama huko nje, anataka atoe mawazo yake, but over to you ndugu Karioki. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are very happy to have Mr. Ruben Kigame with us, and we appreciate his comments and his advice and his engagement. He really challenges me because in my other life, I'm also a politician, and I see how hard he works, how he is moving around the country, and with the Jenga, sorry, I'm forgetting the word, but the values of Utu, I follow quite a bit, and I'm very proud of what he is doing, and he is an encouragement to other Christians. If he is doing it, we can also do it. So at this point, I want, we had planned to finish around 10, but we have gone past that. We should be finishing in a short while. And David, I don't know if you had planned to stay this long, but please bear with us. We give 2 more speakers, then David Ewangata will come to conclude the session. So, Joe, you look like Gen Z. You want to speak?
Thank you so much. I'm not a Gen Z. I'm a millennial.
Okay. Sawa.
Yeah.
You are welcome still.
Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak on your space. I was telling my Auntie Rose that I have a cold, so my voice is not coming out the same way she's used to. But I have a couple points that I wanted to deliver, and this being a Christian group, I want to say that I'm a Christian, and I have known the Lord for as long as I have been old enough to know what it means to know the Lord. I wanted to start by saying that the Christian nation, or the Christians in Kenya, we are not angry enough. In fact, we are complicit of the status quo that's happening in the country. We have enabled this status quo, and we need to have that anger, the anger of Elijah at Mount Carmel, when he was so angry that he led the slaughter of 400 prophets of Baal. That is the type of anger that we in Kenya need to be especially the Christians in Kenya need to be having right now. We need to step out of our comfort. We need to get out of that cocoon. This is one of those times of in our lives whereby we should not even be comfortable worshiping the Lord like as if it's an everyday run-of-the-mill type of deal in Kenya. It is not an everyday run-of-the-mill type of deal in Kenya. The battles that these kids are fighting out there, they are not even within their limits, and they are doing they're fighting those battles on our behalf. When they're calling for justice, when they're calling for accountability, when they're calling for good governance, when they're calling for an open government that works for all Kenyans, and they're being countered with political solutions that are not going to bring us peace or justice. In fact, when they ask for accountability, wanaambiwa, oh, we want peace. Ni kama when asking for accountability, ni kama wataleta vurugu na vita Kenya. And we know that they are really asking, how is every shilling being spent in this country? Why are we not seeing the labors or the fruits of our labors. We know they know about seed time, but when it comes to harvest time, they they are not bringing in the sheaves. They are not rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves. It's just that the government is busy collecting taxes through their nose. So my plight tonight is to ask you guys and the Christian community of Kenya that we need to tap into the anger of Elijah. We need to get angry. This is not the time to sing the Lord's song. How can we sing the Lord's song while we are in captivity? Our nation is in captivity. We are worse than those guys were when they were in Babylon. Um, we we really need to join these young kids who are speaking on behalf of our nation, because the people like us, my generation, the millennials, and our parents and our grandparents, they are tired. We are complicit to the corruption. We are complicit to the impunity that goes on in this country. But when we see these kids, out there in the streets, they are actually representing the voice of God, and it behooves us to join them. When Nane comes, we need to join them. Instead of us going out there and afflicting and making sure that we afflict damage on all those corrupt politicians, all those the political elite. We have lost so many. We last year alone, in the month of August, when the Azimio la Umoja youths were protesting, about 50 of them, more than 50 of them were killed. And when we complained, we were told, oh, the opposition had hired corpses. Who hires corpses to, it is crazy. We really need to be on the offensive. If your job is to pray, get on your knees, pray as many times as you can, pray without ceasing for our nation, because this battle is for our nation. It is for the soul of our country. And right now, as we wind up tonight, we really need to say a word or two of prayer for our nation, because right now we are being led by Christians, but the politicians who are out there, most of them, they are not Christians. They are taking advantage of the Christian church to whitewash their corrupt ways. And it's time that we spat them out. We need to vomit them out so the church can be able to take its original stance of calling out the government. We need to wake up. Um, the other issue is we are not walking in the shoes of these kids. We know, actually, when I say kids, it may be offensive because most of them are old enough to vote, and they're asking for what is right as citizens of this country. And when the government calls them kids or watoto wetu, and then goes on the next day to shoot 20 of them, and some of them point blank in the head. Who shoots their kids in the head? Even Christ himself asked, when your child asks for bread, do you give them stone? Whatever is happening right now, it's really evil in the eyes or in the sight of man, and also in the sight of God. And it behooves us to step up, walk in the shoes of these disenfranchised kids. They are our kids, they are our brothers and sisters who are confronting the person who has stolen away their franchise. And as soon as we are able to walk a mile in their shoes, they are calling for a better Kenya. And when Kenya works for everyone, they won't have the need to be in the streets, because Kenya will be working for everyone. I also wanted to correct.
I hope you are landing now.
All right. I am on my last point. Where landing is the previous speaker talked about them being leaderless. I wanted to tell the previous speaker that the scripture says that the orphans and the widows are mine, says the Lord. Since this country and since every generation has abandoned these kids belong to God, and they have his backing. And I think they are a theocracy. It's a theocracy is a nation that is ruled by God. So when they say they're leaderless, then it doesn't mean that they don't have backup. They have the best kind of backup out there. You all have a blessed night.
Thank you very much, Joe, for sharing your thoughts. Uh, I agree, we are not angry enough because so much injustice is happening. Uh, let me say also something that Ruben Kigame referred to. We are just comfortable with Parliament vetting these guys, and we know how Parliament is complicit. It's just a futile exercise. We don't expect them to flag any issues that may come up. Personally, I have had a challenge even to watch those interviews. I've not been able to watch because uh, I was very excited when the president fired the entire cabinet. And I thought that maybe he was listening to people. And maybe now we are going to start having changes. But when I saw the same people going back, and even the criteria that was used to get new guys, because many of us would have expected that now it is broad-based, competent Kenyans to apply for those positions. Then there'll be public vetting, interviews, the shortlisting. But you look at that, you think this is a joke. So it's unfortunate where we are. But let me stop there first. We have two more people who will speak, then David will conclude for us. And David, at the end, you will also pray for us, as Joe has mentioned, because as Christians, at the end of the day, we draw our strength and direction from God. Lala Salama, are you ready to say something?
Thank you very much. I'm not a generation, lakini mie mzee wenu. When I can...
The photo is a bit misleading, but please proceed.
When I was in Kenya, I met Raila and Memusi in the funeral of Memusi's member of parliament, Memusi's wife. So I met Raila and we were talking about politics, me and Raila Odinga in the funeral, after the funeral. And I asked him, what in hell is going on in Kenya? That was about 2 years ago, before the election, 1.5 years before the election. And you know what Raila told me? He told me, don't worry, the new generation will take over. That's what he told me. The new generation will take over. When after election, you will see. If I don't win, then the real generation will take over. So I was not surprised to see the Gen Z. I was not surprised at all. Nikakumbuka, and I remember what Raila Odinga told me in the funeral, and Memusi was there, who is opposition member of parliament. Anyway, I don't want to talk a lot because in actual fact, I'm from Zanzibar, but I'm a politician. I've been politician in Finland. So I know very much Kenya, and I had my wife in Kenya, but she died, unfortunately, just 8 months ago. So it's a very unfortunate. I wanted to give you just one thing. This Gen Z should be a kind of foundation of which will try to give a kind of scholarships to youth to go abroad and study much more politics, political science, economics, and so on and so forth. So in 2 years or 3 years or whatever, when they come, they are much more politically matured. I know that Kenyans are much more matured than other countries in East Africa, but the problem is we have to have much more politically matured generation like Obama and like like this of West Africa, those in the army who took over in Burkina Faso, and I'm looking forward to see much more actively, politically matured with a lot of education in the pockets, which will, blomster East Africa in general. That is what I'm looking for. So somebody, I was listening here, someone told me that Gen Z can be a political party. No. Don't form any political party, but it's kind of foundation of which you're going to concentrate on maturing, concentrate on teaching, concentrating on giving scholarship to youths, to Kenya youths, to East African youth, to go and study and come back with full of education in the pockets. I remember Abraham Babu of Zanzibar, when he left ZNP, Zanzibar National Party, the first thing he took about 500 teenagers and sent them to Europe to study. He got them scholarship everywhere around the world, East Germany in those days, in the 50s and 60s. And when they came back, they had to make that revolution of Zanzibar. Of course, I don't say that they're coming to make revolution, but they became much more politically matured and to know what they want. That is my idea, the way forward for Kenya and for East Africa in general, because it's not Kenya who is suffering in politics. It's also the Tanzania which is suffering in politics. There's Uganda. Museveni has been in party, and I have personally helped Museveni in educating him in when I was in Gothenburg in Sweden. So all these people, they are just sitting there on those chairs, jumping up and down, accumulating money, accumulating finance, and they don't think about the generation. They don't think about youth. They don't think about the East African, how to develop East Africa. They don't think of the other people. They think of themselves. What I call tumbocracy, just they are matumbos only, So I'm sure what you have done, how you have what Gen Z in Kenya has done is good, fantastic, beautiful, lovely, well done. But still, you've got a long way to run, my dear boys. You've got a long way to run. Do a kind of foundation with a kind of, just like octopus, part of education, part this and part that and part that, and go forward. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you for the encouraging words and also reminding us. Sometimes we want instant results, but Professor Kibwana recently reminded us, and you have repeated, so I know that is coming out of experience, that this is not instant coffee. We keep fighting. It may not happen tomorrow, but eventually it will happen. So thank you. That is encouraging. And Paul Sana for the loss of your wife.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I've got kids, but not kids of my own. I have kids of which I'm taking care of. They are still alive, so I'm taking care of them.
Thank you for joining us. I know I had indicated that we just have one person, then David, but I'm reminded Prof was supposed to respond to a few issues that were raised. So Prof, do you have some words also to wrap up your part? Professor Kivuda Kibwana, do you have some more comments you would like to make at this point?
No, I think I think Ruben did talk about this question of if the president was to resign or not to be in position, that there could be also something that Omtata and Miguna have also talked about, some bypass way of getting elections to happen. The Constitution, of course, says that if the president vacates office, then the DP will be president for the rest of the term. If both of them, for whatever reason, vacate office, then the speaker will be an acting president for 60 days when there is an election. So it would be important to see how that Article 1 can be used. And I think there's like some case in court which also seeks to get an interpretation regarding that. Of course, now the IBC is being put into place. It is true, as Ruben has said, if the political class will choose 5 of the panel members, and already there's disagreement about, I think, 1 of them, and then the religious sector has already chosen 2, and they were from the previous, I think, panel. Then the Law Society 1, the ISPAC, the accountants 1. You can see that is already lopsided vis-a-vis, an IBC that the political people can have more sway than anybody else. And it is like the referee, but the players are choosing the referee. So there is a problem, and that's why if you can't change this in terms of the law that was passed through NADCO, then it means that during the vetting again, people have to be very, 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 very awake to make sure that the individuals who come through of exceptional integrity and all that kind of stuff. So there's a big job there. And I think those were the basic questions that were asked, but I really believe that our discussion today and what also Anthony talked about, I think those are very, very important discussions and discussions elsewhere about how to really get to a situation of agreement in terms of the way forward, so that this movement, like other movements before, does not dissipate. Because to get momentum for another movement, even the young people will be tired and they'll say, now we don't want peace. Now we want change through any means necessary. And we have seen previously about Mungiki, we have seen about Mombasa Republican Army, about the Sabot. We have seen those attempts, including the Itetu coup and so on and so forth. Let me just, to conclude my reflections, and it's something that I put on the wall, just to say, to read for these young people, these valiant people, and we were told that they have a leader, because God is the leader of all of us, and particularly orphans and widows. But let me read Isaiah 40, 28 to 31. Do you not know? Have you not heard? The Lord is the everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He will not grow tired or weary, and his understanding no one can fathom. He gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. Even youths grow tired and weary, and young men stumble and fall. But those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They'll run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. May our Gen Zs soar on wings like eagles. May they run and not grow weary, and may they walk and not be faint, and we should come out and be with them in these endeavors to support them, not to sabotage them. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you for those comments and the conclusion from the word of God. Indeed, may God give strength to the Gen Z, to the youth, and even to the youthful at heart who are part of this agitation for change in our country. And we trust God that He will help us. Thank you for that caution that there is a possibility of getting tired. So may God help us that we don't lose the momentum and we go for the change that we are demanding to the end. So before I invite Moshiri, I want to remind us, please, there are a lot of people who come and watch or listen to the space even after it has ended. So it will be very helpful if you could help us to share the space, to repost. If you go to the Elnet Kenya account, you can repost so that even those who will be joining can be able to follow. Or those, maybe somebody who is not with us, they can follow later. So I remind you to follow us. It is very helpful. Remember to follow Prof. Remember to follow Ruben, myself, Rosemary, all of us, because of the work that we are doing, so that when we have such spaces, a lot of people are able to get the invitation and to join. So, Moreidi, I want to invite you to take 2 minutes, give us your final reflections on this, and then we will have David Dewangata, who will make the concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Jane Karaoke. Thank you very much, our very able hosts, Rosemary and Elnet. And thank you very much for all the wonderful contributions that have been made by the likes of Ruben Kigame and Kivuda Kibwana and all other speakers, including David. In conclusion, I will say, from what we've heard from all the speakers on this space and many other spaces, you realize that Kenya has a deficit of trust and a great breakdown of communication between the citizens and the country and the leaders of the country. But regardless of all that, I'm very happy that we're having this discussion on the way forward, where we not only talk about the challenges this great nation of ours is facing, but we equally talk about how do we actively be the change that we want to see in this country by equally discussing the solutions that we would love to engage like-minded people, like-minded organizations like Elnet and the religious groups and all other groups on how to have a better Kenya that truly works for everyone. You realize that Kenya finds itself in a very important space in this country's history. Why do I say this? We truly have a group of young Kenyans, middle-aged Kenyans, and the elderly who all say in one voice that we can be the change that was envisioned when our forefathers fought for independence for this country. And when we actually took time to write the great constitution that is the 2010 constitution. I want to echo the words of Professor Kiruhi, where he said we must inspire. And that is what this movement has done. It has truly inspired everyone. I come from Kirinyaga, and I can tell you, this is a village that produced, if you saw the TV, a lady say that they encourage the Gen Z because they are voicing what people are going through. In my group, what we are doing is seeing how we can actually use sports, culture, and music and religion to bring all these diverse voices together under one platform. In essence, we want to move the movements from, if the road doesn't work, can we congregate in spaces like stadiums, other open spaces, and we use sports, culture, religion, entertainment, where Kenyans talk to each other about the challenges they are facing. I want to say I'm more than willing And I would really appreciate if I can learn from all the great voices, Kivuda Kibwana, Rosemary, Ruben Kigame, JN, Elnet. I really would love to keep in touch with you. I host a space and I'll be able, I host a space every Monday to Friday with Andrew Kibe, where we are discussing how to form this group. We are actively fundraising for within our space because we believe to own something, you must also commit to it. And I look forward to having this engagement that we bring all these voices together because at the end of all this, we want a Kenya that works for all of us. And I'll finish by saying what I say every day in every space. We know the Kenya we want. We need to believe in ourselves that it will not be delivered by anyone else but us. So we must be those leaders, we must be the presidents, we must be the MCs, so that we deliver the Kenya we are fighting for today. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening and contributing equally. I look forward to continually engage and share in all the spaces you open. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moredi. We are glad that you attended this, and we will be happy to connect with you to also join your space. Personally, I'll be joining. So thank you very much. Let's continue with this conversation. So Mr. David Wangata, it's your chance now.
Thank you. Let me just appreciate as others have done, the likes of Ruben Kigame, Kivuda Kibwana, Dr. Tim Kirugi, and all the others who have spoken before me. And I just want to say this. I think there's a lot of ideas going forward. I don't think Kenya is devoid of ideas on what next. It is actually a political ploy to say that we don't know what next. We all know very clearly what next. I think it needs to be put on paper there, but we all know what next. We know it's integrity. It's systems that work. It's a change of culture that has to happen. And those are the things that we are fighting against. Not necessarily an individual, not necessarily a community, not necessarily an age group or an age set. And I don't want us to shift our battle from tribalism to age set or to class, which is most likely. Just three things that I feel would be a direction as we talk about which way. Number one, we need to look at it as a shift from the leadership structure we had, where it's about the big man, to a leadership structure that is about system. There are countries in this world where you won't even hear elections happen. Not because they don't have elections, but because the system is functional. And I think we are not into an HR audit. And that's unfortunately what has been read by a lot of us. It's not an HR audit. It's not people in. It's a system that will take even the best of us and turn them into a poor. I think apart from the light, many of our other in prominent have failed at the beginning. And so that's why I kept saying it's not HR audit. We have capable, brilliant minds there, but the system destroys every fiber of attempt to change things and make them better. Number two, we are fighting against a culture. So the number one is the system. Number two is a culture. There's a culture of getting as much out of nothing in Kenya. And it's fueled by a couple of things. Number one, the historic corruption that we have. But two, unfortunately, by the preaching of us that says, if I love, I'll always get favor, unmerited favor. When I want, divine speed, divine elevation. And what does that tell people? It tells people that you can get everything for nothing. And so Unfortunately, I have to say this as a church, we failed to preach a gospel that says you need to work, not just your salvation with fear and trembling, but you also need to put your hands to work to make profit and to bring benefit to the community. And so we have contributed to the corruption by our teaching. And I tell people always, there's nothing more dangerous than false doctrine. We need to keep our doctrine. We cannot keep preaching a hazy doctrine of the need for effort for us to get reward. Number two, I want to I say you start with it. All right. Number three, we need to be aware that when we get into this battle, it's going to be very hard.
David, we keep losing you at some point, so.
All right, can you hear me now?
I don't know what you could do.
I
Maybe
have
move
done.
closer to the mic.
I have done it. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you.
All right. So the last thing is we need to take that even the parliament to any and every one of those back to the people. By that, I'm not saying that we disempower them. Balance that needs to be put in place and such. And I think somebody said it. You come in and you start to deliver. It's just well, first of all, you're put on probation. If you can't deliver in the first 6 months, they don't confirm you. Secondly, even if they confirm you and you don't deliver, they have an elaborate system that gets you out almost immediately. We need to be able to put that system in place for our country, because I think the impunity that has grown is because we do not have checks and balances for them that get into electoral position. Yet they are the ones that hold over all the resources. And lastly, I will say this: the battle we are fighting is not a battle for position. It's not a battle for a particular sharing. It's not a battle for a particular opportunity to be put on somebody's plate. It's a battle to be able to do what is biblically our mandate. Micah 6:8 says, He has shown you, O man, what the Lord requires of you. What does the Lord require of you? Act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. This battle that the Gentiles have awoken is actually a battle for justice, mercy, and walking humbly with God. If we can go back to that, and I read my earlier Matthew 23:23, if we can go back to that and we realize that Nane is not about the it's not about the downtrodden, it's about a people who know what is right and what is true. And it's actually not just constitutional, it's biblical. So both our constitution and our Bible uphold the same. Even if a Muslim was here, the same thing, the Quran upholds the same. Any book, any religious book upholds matters justice, matters right, righteousness, matters truth, matters accountability, and matters integrity. May we stand, not because Gen Zs have stood up, may we stand because we have understood our mandate. And as somebody said, we have not been angry enough. May we get angry enough to be able to say enough is enough. If we do not surmount this mountain at this time, if we get rolled back, either by fear or by fatigue or by complacency that we always. And I love what Ruben Kigame said about some of the recommendations. The churches take the church to the street. For us to be able to have what they call civil disobedience, we are not going to, so that we can be able to reinforce what the young people, the wedge in the door that the young people have opened. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me tonight. Let us pray. Father, we thank you because your word is full of example, narratives, pictures, illustrations of truth, of justice, of righteousness. And Lord, we cannot by any means claim to be your people, claim to be called by your name, and not turn to your word and say, Lord, these are the things you called us. And Father, I pray that you will help us. Help us as a nation. We have been so lost in a culture that has taken away from us the need for integrity, the need for truth, the need for justice, the need for fair gain from our labor. Father, I pray that this will not be the future for this country. And I pray that the opportunity, the window that has been opened up, actually the prophetic movement of the young people that have stepped up in response possibly to many prayers we have made. Lord, may we not overlook them and say, how can such a rebellious, as we have said of them, how can such a carefree, how can such a simplistic generation be the one God uses to answer our prayer? Lord, I pray that this will not be our narrative. Father, may we hear what the Spirit is saying, even through these unlikely events. May we understand what the times and seasons are and what we need to do. Father, we thank you and we bless you for every leader here. We thank you, Lord, for them that have gone before us and have done what they could do in their time and season. I thank you for all of us here in leadership. Would we not step back from the place where we are needed to step up so that we can see transformation in our nation? We have one country to live in. We have one hope in Christ. And we have one call to live according to your purposes. Lord, would you help us to live according to your purposes in this time and season? Bless us. We thank you, Lord, for everyone here, all the organizers, all the facilitators, all the speakers, and even all the. Bless us and help us to be courageous. Help us to be bold. Help us to be willing to step out into the light when you're calling us to do it. And may we not give up in any way. For this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you so, so much, David Ewagata. That was, it wasn't quite audible throughout, but really very good information that you've shared in terms of following up. Na mimi nataka kuregesha mic to ndugu yangu Jane Karaoke to conclude this space by urging each one of you the times that we hold it. And please, we are open to hearing any other topics that are pertinent to this movement, how ELNET and the Kenya Christian Professionals Forum can assist in whatever way. I did mention the issue of mental illness. Unajua sisi kina mama ikiwa tunaumia mahali tunasema, and the young people, lakini wazee hamsemi. How many of you even go in for checkup, mambo ya prostate na mambo kama hayo? Tusidanganyane, tusione aibu. Please, we need you all of sound mind. We need you all very healthy. Please go in for those checkups. Na ikiwa umekandamizwa mahali, please tuelezee. We look forward to meeting with you again. It really has been my humble honor to participate and work with the ELNET on this space and Kenya Christian Professionals Forum. I thank you all. Back to you, Jen.
an extra session during the course of the week. I shared the contacts for ELNET, the phone number. I think it is very, very important if you give us your feedback, because sometimes people feel that we could improve, but you are not sharing. So please give us the feedback. We will appreciate, and we will try as much as possible to be responsive to that feedback. If I have missed anything, forgive me. I think it is time to end. I wish you a good night. Thank you so much. God bless you.
God bless you all. Remember to follow each other. Let's grow the movement. Na washukuru na and have a blessed weekend.